There's always more than one way to do things to get the same outcome, and I'm going to build on Jeff's explanation of how he made a triptych for the PDI panel competition, showing you how you can complete the entire process in Lightroom, saving you having to go into Photoshop or indeed the need to crop. Then I'm going to move on to creating work for the spring exhibition using the same basic techniques. So let's start, just as Jeff did, with some images in a collection and then open them up in the print module in Lightroom, where you can see them in the film strip at the bottom. I'm going to give you a health warning here about ensuring that some of the changes that we make during this process, you understand that you have to change them back again before you go back to printing single images. I will remind you of that at the end of this process as well. So step one is to use the page setup here on the bottom left and pick up the menu here where you can find the 16:9 setup, put it into landscape, and that will give you a page to work on that is the right aspect ratio. That means you won't have to crop anything. The next thing to do is to go to the custom package on the top right and select that, and that gives you a nice empty space into which to put your images. You can now drag and drop the images that you want to use onto your page, adjust them by dragging the edges of the cells to fill the space available to you, and in truth you can play like this for absolutely hours. And just as Jeff explained, you can also hold down Control and move the image, and should you decide that you don't like one of the images you've first chosen, you can simply override it with another one. So let's just fill this space up. And this one, let's just extend him out to the edges of our page, because you don't have to. You can arrange them any way you like on the page at all. It is entirely up to you. Bring that one up a little bit, him down, and I think we'll live with that. Okay, so a reminder on how to set the page background colour. Turn on page background colour, open the menu, left click, and to pick up the eyedropper and pick up a suitable colour from within the image. Same thing, exactly the same thing. If you want to put an inner stroke on, click on the inner stroke, pick up the menu, left click, and find a colour that you're happy with. Okay, let's go with the orange. At this point, we need to note something a little odd. You can see a white border all the way around the page. That's the print bleed border. So if you were going to print this, you'd need to bring your individual cells within the page background colour as they are here. But you aren't going to print. You're going to have to create a JPEG file, and the page colour will cover the whole of the page, even up here beyond the cell. It looks as if it won't. Trust me, it will. So how to save this as a JPEG file? Well, one of the things that can puzzle those new to Lightroom is that, generally speaking, you don't need to save. Now, that can be a blessing or it can be a curse. In this case, it's a bit of a curse because you can't just hit something and say save as a JPEG. What you have to do to get this ready to enter for the competition is you have to print to JPEG. Now, to do that, you do it down here in the print jobs section, and you swap print to printer to print to JPEG file. My computer is set up so that whenever I do this, it saves the resulting file on my desktop, and then I file them where I want them afterwards. You do just need to make sure that you know where your computer is saving your file. So if I tell this to print to file, I then need to give the file a name and save it. And here it goes up here sending it to my desktop, and if I swap to my desktop and open that test2 image, there it is with the colour extending beyond the edge of the cell as I said that it would. The proportions are all ready, it's ready to be uploaded into PhotoComp. In this instance, it doesn't matter that it's a big file, this one is actually over 4 meg. But I'm just going to finish this section by giving you a reminder about that health warning, which is make sure you reset your paper size and your print functions before you try printing single images again. So let's move on now to preparing work for the spring exhibition. You've got a really free hand here. You can simply submit up to 4 separate images, but just as we do for the real spring exhibition, you can opt for a single display board on which you can arrange a number of images. Now, there is one limit, and that relates to the maximum file size the exhibition software will accept. I'll explain that more later, but very simply, if you think about it, one digital image makes a much smaller digital file than lots of digital images combined. It's basic maths, and that's about the only limitation you have on you for this process. So what might you combine? Well, here, for instance, are 4 images put together, obviously with a theme, or it could be multiple images with a nice coloured background and also some text which you can apply using this process, or it could be a more complex arrangement. Please excuse the poor quality of this file, it's very small, this is just for illustrative purposes. And to do something like this, we start just as we did for the triptych with a collection of images which we will have to open up in the print module. Now this time a good starting layout is the 10 by 15 format, but you can use it landscape or portrait, or you can even work in a square. It really is up to you. So we've got our collection open. Let's go to our page setup, drop down menu, 10 by 15 this time. I'm going to stick with landscape. Okay. Custom package, and there's my nice clean page to work on. And just as before, we can start by dragging and dropping the images that we might want to use in here, and then we can start arranging them to suit our design ideas. Now, something I didn't mention last time, which I must say now, is that you must make sure you haven't ticked the lock to photo aspect ratio. If you do that, let's try it on this one, what will happen is that you will maintain the proportions of that photograph. You won't be able to move it in the cell as was demonstrated earlier. So make sure you take off lock to photo aspect. Now, I'm sure you can appreciate that this could be a very long process, arranging these how you want them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording now. I will arrange something on the page, come back to you when that's more complete, and show you the next steps. Here then is a page set up suitable for this demonstration, if not one I'd actually settle on. And to create this, you should know I've moved between the print module and develop, perhaps to invert an image or to crop to make them more easily usable. I'll show you what I mean. So this central image, for instance, I'd just like to use the central section. So I'll just open it up in develop, and then I will crop it down. You can, if you like, make a copy and crop that instead of cropping the original image. Let's take a lump off of this size, that's better, and then just pop that back into print module, and you'll see we've got a much smaller version of that image. So with a little bit of final adjustment, there it is in place. Now we can adjust the page background colour as before. page background on, open the menu, left click, select a colour for our background. There's that one, and again, if we want to make a border around each image, a nice little tiny stroke, left click, let's go for something blue this time. And there we are, we're almost ready to make this into a JPEG, but you might want to add a text box. Now for a simple title block, you can use the identity plate function. So let's turn identity plate on. You can see what mine is set by as default. So I'm going to open that up, edit it, change the title. And then I can also change the typeface, the font. I'm going to drop it down and I'm going to choose, if I can find it, I'm going to use Garamond. Okay, so I can then move that where I want it to be. Let's leave it here for the moment. I perhaps want to change the colour of that. So override colour, left click exactly as before, pick up, sorry, let's just open that, left click, open up a colour for our font, go for something a little on the darker side, and there's that. Now I can put it over an image, or I could adjust our space and just put it straight on the background. So let's move this image up, just give him a little tweak, and then I'll have my title block there. Okay, so we are now ready to save this as a JPEG. And just before I move on to that, I'll just remind you that the page bleed will go to the edges of the page. It won't stop as if it would when we're printing. Printing to JPEG, or saving it as a JPEG this time, is slightly more complicated than it is to the Triptych, because the file size for the exhibition software has a limit that it will accept, and that's 5 megabytes. And to get the best quality for that, we recommend that you increase the pixel count, that's the PPI, to 500. But I know, having already tested it, that this combined image will exceed the 5 meg limit if I don't adjust it slightly. Now, to overcome it, I'm going to reduce the JPEG quality, and I understand that probably sounds contradictory, but it does work. So with a little trial and error, I know how I need to adjust this. I need to change print to printer to print to JPEG, increase the file resolution to 500, and then I'm going to drop this to 90%. I'm going to print to file. I'm going to test 90%. You can see I've already got one there, but I'll override it with this one. So you can see the one we're doing now. It's just sending it to the desktop. And if we swap to the desktop view, there's my 3 exported JPEGs. The test, which is coming in too large, the 95%, which is still too large, the 90%, which is just over 4 meg, and if I open them up, I think you can see there is no discernible loss of quality between those. So I hope that you found that useful. You know you can always ask questions after this session, or you can get in touch with us and we'll answer your questions as best we can. Thank you all for watching.